Welcome to another episode of Artistic Mission. I'm Dan Jabor, your host. We're doing something a little different this week. I've gotten some email questions, and I thought I would take a moment to answer some of those for you. First question, this one, there's not a name attached to it, and I'm not going to give out their email address. What is it you hope to accomplish by having an art show that no one listens to? Okay, let me answer that question. First, there are people listening. I have more than one letter here that proves that people are listening and engaged and active in the show. So that premise at first is false. But what am I hoping to accomplish by this show? I want to shine a light on other artists that I appreciate, people that are doing interesting and great work, people that aren't necessarily getting the attention that I think they deserve. That's part of it. I also think that St. Louis especially, and not that the show is going to be limited to St. Louis forever, it just happens to be where I'm at now and the people that I have access to. This could grow to something larger in the future, and maybe we'll get a chance to interview artists who are outside of St. Louis. I'm certainly not against that. As I stated in an earlier episode, I'm working to try to get press credentials and everything to go down to Art Basel this year in December in Miami. So I'm still waiting to hear back about that. And if not, I can always try to go and crash it, and I will probably end up doing that also. So one way or another, that's in the works for this year. But mostly, I want to help other artists who are starting out to move their careers a little bit forward, give them interesting things to consider, think about. I think you can learn a lot from anybody. Everybody has at least a small lesson to teach you. Not always a positive one. You can learn a lesson from someone who did something great just as easily as you can learn a lesson from someone who did something not great. Hey, that person did something awesome. Let's repeat it. And hey, that person did something terrible. I better not do that same thing. So that's what I hope to accomplish, is the ever moving forward and evolving of art through artists. I want everybody to get better, in plain English. Everybody get better, everybody do better. Myself included, you included, anyone who's listening. Even if you're not an artist, if you're somebody who just has an interest. And this is something that you can do if you want to help. If you go to an art show, take a friend with you. If you have a friend that expresses a little bit of interest, you don't have to teach them everything. Everything you teach them may not be perfectly right, but expose people. They're not getting the exposure in school. A lot of people have the idea that, going to an art show is a suit and tie and tuxedo affair, and it can be, but in most cases it's not that. And you can show up however, whenever. Come in, check out the artwork, and talk to the artist. A lot of them are very approachable, and that gives you a lot of insight and a new way to look at the world. So I really think that, just widening out the art world so that it's not just us. Artists don't need to bring more artists into the game. You can also help by bringing more customers into the game. Your friend, your aunt, your grandma, coworkers. I've taken coworkers out with me before to art shows and events and, taught them what I know and asked them questions and let them ask me questions. And a lot of them have come back and gone to other events or expressed an interest of doing more and learning more about it. So, if we were all doing that, imagine how much better sales would be for everyone. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. Next question. Hey Dan, love the show. I'm curious about your thoughts on St. Louis art in particular. Like, is this a good place to live if you're an artist? Keep it up, Jess B. Okay. St. Louis is an awesome town to live and work if you're an artist. Cost of living here, until very recently, was amazing. Probably in the last year, I've noticed that housing prices, I think, have gone up on the order of maybe 30%. Still a lot of great deals out there if you're looking for a place to set up shop, set up a place to live. And, with more people moving into the city, yeah, prices there are going to go up, but, it might become a thing where, prices drop some in the burbs or in certain suburbs, and, you could still get in and be close. But, the real estate shit aside, you can do really well here. There is a large arts community here. It's somewhat fractured because there is such an availability and there's such a gung-ho do-it-yourself art movement here. I've seen groups. There's a group that was called, I'm going to name names for a minute. There was an arts group that came through a couple years ago that was, they were a nationwide thing. And they were very much like the pay-to-play rock shows where artists would pay a certain amount of, you'd have to pay a certain amount of money or sell a certain amount of tickets to an art event that this organizer would put on. And then they would supposedly give you a portfolio and a cheap website or a page on their website and, help you get promotional materials and whatever else to make it to where you could move ahead. And then you could do those, and once you paid and did those shows, then you could do that group shows in any other city. Now, some smaller towns or various other cities that either had the room for that or didn't have any scene at all, like, I think that group kind of did well and thrived in those areas because they were the only people doing anything even close to that scale. But to come into a town like St. Louis that already has a thriving underground art, under and above ground art scene, like I said, there's a lot of overlapping circles of involvement in different groups and organizations that do a really good job of creating and promoting art and events. But this group just could not get a toehold, and I'm struggling even to remember the name of it. But yeah, this group, like, they ended up like going through about 3 or 4 different directors because every time they got a new director, I'd get an email asking me if I wanted to be involved. And once I read the prospectus, I was like, no, because there were already so many other people in this area doing better work to help people with less of a financial involvement for the artists that they just couldn't get a toehold here. It wasn't profitable for them, and then I'm assuming they've moved on. I'm thinking they still exist. I just can't remember the name of that organization, and I don't want to say the wrong one and give the wrong person a black eye. But hey guys, Dan here. Quick update. That arts group name that I'm stumbling for here right now, Raw Artists. I would post a link in the show notes, but I don't want anybody else to get sucked into their BS. It was crap. The good riddance. Anyway, back to the show. It was very good to watch them come and go quickly, and very sad to see some of my friends get sucked into it as an opportunity, because there's not really that much opportunity if people are just going to see their friend and not, if the tickets are all sold to your friend and stuff like that. If your friend's broke and they're coming to support you, they're not going to buy from somebody else, although that's how they present it to you. If I go to see my friend at an art show and I don't have much money, I'm going to buy from my friend first, and if I can't afford to buy from my friend, I'm certainly not going to buy from anybody else. So from what I heard, those events had very low sales, although they had some. I'm sure they touted every one that they got, but yeah, I just, not to say that the art shows that we have in St. Louis or the organizations couldn't do better work, or I don't know. I have this fantasy of, instead of artists paying to get into an art show, that artists get paid to be in an art show. And I've been toying with that, how to make that happen. And when I get that show together, I will certainly announce it. But that's still a little bit away. I don't have a venue yet. I'm still working on the math part of it. But I have done shows in the past where artists paid a very small fee to be into the show, and but then a large portion of that fee was rolled back into prize money for the award winners. So if you got like best of show, like, you got some cash behind that too. I think I got a really good response to that, and I like being able to kick money back to the artist rather than using it to put it into the venue and promotion, because I don't think that the promotion that a lot of people are doing is really paying off. I've noticed as Facebook, the rise of Facebook as becoming the only promotion tool that most artists have been using locally, I've been hearing less and less about what's going on, and I have to work and dig harder to find out where art events are happening in St. Louis. I even did a very short stint as an announcer on for a radio station doing an arts and events calendar, and finding events to promote was so complicated that I actually asked to stop doing it because I didn't have the time to sift and sort and go through and find a very narrow band of criteria events. And the few people that have a decent arts calendar up anywhere online, it's really hard to find out what's going on, because the way people plug their events in, they abuse the shit out of it. And they don't just put there's no way to filter just the opening and closing receptions of a show. Like every day, so it's like the same event is happening every day. And if you get something at a museum that's there for 3 months and it pops up ahead of anything that's a 1 day only deal, it's terrible, and you can't really easily find the good stuff. There's a lot of chaff and no wheat, to use an agrarian reference that most people won't get. Anyway, did I answer yeah, okay. Yeah, yes, to answer your question, though, St. Louis is a great place to live and work if you're an artist. So, other people from other cities, if you're hearing this, move here. Fuck LA, fuck New York. Come to St. Louis. You can still visit those cities and live here. It's a lot cheaper. Okay, if you could interview any famous artist, who would it be and why? Oh, George W. Bush. That's my answer. Why? Because, and I know he just had a book out recently for all his paintings, but when the news and stuff that he got hacked, and like they were showing the self-portraits in the shower mirror and bathtub stuff and portraits of his dog and stuff like that, I was immediately fascinated by that. And if I got the chance to interview George W. Bush, and just I don't want to talk about foreign policy, I don't want to talk about Green Day, I don't want to talk about anything except for art with him, that would be amazing. But yeah, that would be my choice. But I'll throw a bonus out there. Second runner-up artist I would talk to, Rachel Dolezal. And I know it seems like I'm pulling these people out of left field, but she is actually an artist, despite all of the getting kicked out of the NAACP and all that stuff. I've pointed out in some interview and articles that she was an artist, and some of that work was supposedly derivative of other people, which doesn't really surprise me. But I found that whole fascinating. I'd like to do a little more research on that before I did an interview with her. I'd look and see how does her work compare to other people's work, and is there any validity to those claims? And I think that would be a really fascinating person to talk to, just strictly about art. I mean, other people who have notoriety in other ways. I'm always fascinated by people that do art and are maybe more passionate about art than anything else in their lives, but they become known or famous for something else than we know them for. Any celebrities that do artwork, I'm fascinated by that, at least in some regard, especially if the work is any good. Okay, and the last question that I have, just a quick question about your bootstrapping episode. If it's such bullshit as you say, I think he's referring to bootstrapping as being bullshit, as I stated in episode 103. How do you explain all of the self-made success stories in America? And that's from Robert. Okay, Robert. Bootstrapping is still bullshit. But it's not really, I don't mean it to say that pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps in and of itself, yes, you should try to work and improve yourself. Yes, you should try harder. Yes, you should do the best that you can and make the most of the little that you have and build on it. Yes, that's America. That's American as fuck. But that narrative, a lot of people will downplay help that they got. They will upplay struggle just to try to fit that mold because they feel like fitting that mold makes it seem like they did more than they really did, or that they feel like they have to fit into that mold in order to be better than what they are. I've always called it, before I found out that it actually had a name. Hey, Dan here with a quick update. Just wanted to tell you that the word that I'm searching for right now is Horatio Alger myth. I'll post a link to this in the comments. Back to the show. I can't find it, although I found it on Wikipedia before. Yes, there are a lot of self-made success stories in America, but I think a lot of them try to inflate the pulling themselves up by their bootstraps image. And you can look at that in politics. They're always quick to tell you how they came from nothing. Nobody wants to tell you that they were born rich and had everything handed to them. They always want to tell you that they're just like you, that they've worked hard and they started from nothing and built their way up. And I think everybody tries to stuff themselves into that mold because it makes them feel like they're one of the founding fathers or some bullshit. But even Ben Franklin, who is one of the people who people so often model themselves after, because I think a lot of people feel that they need to present this image of themselves as some sort of modern-day fake polymath, that they model themselves after true polymaths. But even somebody like Ben Franklin, who was famous for doing great work in many numerous different fields, he wanted to be seen, if you read his autobiography, he wanted to be seen as industrious, as working hard. So he would even admit to, just because he wanted to be seen as working hard, like he always made sure that nobody ever saw him leaning and resting and things like that. He would always make sure that he at least, if he went somewhere, he would be carrying, and even if the boxes were empty, he'd be carrying some empty boxes or something like that, just to make it look like he was doing something really difficult when it wasn't necessarily the case. And you could even argue that his autobiography was a bit of that as well, in that there's a passage that comes to mind quickly where he's talking about his wife buying him a nice plate and bowl and spoon or something because he worked hard, he made a lot of money, he deserved to have something, and he just preferred to have his plain, unfancy chipped bowl or whatever. Well, yeah, that could be just him spinning it to try to make himself seem more humble and more in the image that he wanted to promote of himself. But, a lot of the early American founding fathers, you have to remember that these are people who lived in, at least in the remnants of a feudal system where you were given title and prosperity came from birthright. And it was very hard to move forward in your station in life. America afforded them the opportunity to pull themselves up, but even through circumstances that were very feudal and very much, gifts of friendship and gifts of, getting a military commission was more about being able to buy it or being able to trade favors for it than it was about earning it. Of course, they played up the fact that they earned it and that they were worthy, and that's a lot of that stuff has been lost in the fog of history. You hear about these great guys that went and won some great battle or fought and led men in some great battle. But, a lot of the people who fought in those battles were either paid to be there or promised, an officer's commission and salary that would help boost their station and allow them to move ahead socially. So a lot of it, there's just a lot of bullshit wrapped up in that whole myth. And I don't think that you necessarily need to feel bad about asking for help. I don't think that you necessarily need to feel bad about being born with money. I don't think you necessarily have to feel bad about I think a lot of people feel bad or guilty if their path to success is easier than someone else's, so they need to play up the amount of work and effort, that they've earned it and deserve it. I'll post a couple of links in the show notes for this episode because I'm not really going to have much in the way of show notes. Not necessarily about bootstrapping or anything like that, but just good stuff that if I need some extra motivation, I'll watch it, and it gives me a different thing to think about. That helps. That are things that have helped me to move forward in my own art career. Anyway, I think I've answered all the questions that I've gotten so far. If you would like to send me questions, and I will answer them possibly on a future episode, send it to the email address that I'm about to give you, podcast@danjabor.com. Send me an email, send me questions, tell me the show, what you like, tell me what you don't like. We can make changes. I'm working very hard to keep the show on a steady schedule, and I'm not doing the greatest at it, but I am promising that I'm going to work harder and get better at it. Pull myself up by my bootstraps and make this show better. That's it for this episode of Artistic Mission. If you liked what you heard, please take a moment to subscribe, rate and review us on iTunes, SoundCloud, whatever it is that you use to listen to the show. It's very much appreciated. It helps the show to climb the charts where more and more people can find out about us. Easy, simple, takes just a couple seconds, and it does a great deal as far as boosting visibility for the show. And we appreciate every review, every like, every tweet, every share. Every time you tell somebody else about the show helps us get a little bit bigger, and we appreciate it very much. We hope you enjoyed listening. Take a moment to check out our Patreon page. That's at patreon.com/artistic mission. You'll have to type that link in directly. Doing a search on Patreon's website by itself will not, we don't show up in search results because I have us set for adult content just because you never know what we might want to post. But I've been keeping up regular updates on there for patrons only. So if you subscribe at the $1 level, you'll get to see sneak previews of upcoming guests. If you subscribe at the $5 level, you'll get tips and tricks from myself and some of our guest artists. And there's some of those already posted up online. So you'll get exclusive content that nobody else gets. It only costs a couple bucks a month. Of course, there are some higher levels of donations available. However, I do not expect anyone to actually do them. If you read the descriptions and what you get for them, yeah, you get some prizes and stuff. But yeah, it's jokes, people. It's all jokes. But yeah, $1 a month, you won't even feel it. But if enough people do it, it'll be a great boost for our show. And it'll enable me to buy some more equipment and get the sound quality up, get better mics, things like that a little bit quicker. I mean, I'll still get them eventually. I just have to do it in addition to paying bills and in addition to everything else. So full show notes, danjabor.com/podcast. Take a moment to check those out. You'll see pictures of our artists, links to every episode, and a little bit of special content. If you listen to an interview and you liked what you heard, but you want to find out more about that artist, you can check out. We'll have links to people's websites. They're all there. Go back, listen to old episodes, see what these people look like. You see them in a crowd, say, hey, I heard you on the show. You were awesome. You did good work. I liked the pictures of your stuff. Things like that. It means a lot to artists. Anyway, that's all for this week. Check us out. We're available almost anywhere that you can get podcasts. And numbers have been good. Show's been getting bigger. Show's been getting better. And we hope that you continue to enjoy it. So check us out again in a couple weeks. We'll have another episode up. Thanks again for listening. Much appreciated. Love you guys. Take care.